Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first ever Four Horsemen Podcast. My name is Quinn Schafer. I'm here with Jeremy Wagner.
Hi.
And we're here today to talk about some issues in the world, our views on a lot of stuff.
From a Christian point of view,
Yep.
I mean, we're in the millennial age group. There's a lot of issues, I feel, with our age group that we're running into.
Absolutely.
And a lot of it is God's not in anything.
Not at all.
You know.
I mean, they took the Pledge of Allegiance out of schools because
Yep.
it said the word God. So there's a lot of issues going around today.
That's it. And we got kneeling football players
Yep.
during the national anthem. There's a lot of issues, and we just feel like we need to address some of them.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so we'll start off with telling you guys a little bit about ourselves and why we decided to do what we're doing here today.
Absolutely.
So, I'm 20 years old, about to turn 21, and I've been going to church ever since I can remember my entire life. So I haven't had the transition moment from non-Christian to Christian. But, I've always had a really close relationship, but I've had my struggles just like anybody else. It happens. But I've always been going to church and trying to tell people about the Word of God, and I think that I haven't done as good of a job as I needed to. So I think this is a great outreach, a great way to get His message out to other people that maybe haven't heard of it.
Yep. So, and me, I'm 25. I work in the manufacturing field. Same thing as Quinn, same situation. My parents have been born-again Christians since before I was born. So I've been raised in a church. I haven't been there in a few years. Been some issues finding the right church for me personally. There's some things that I have to work through. There's not a perfect church. Everybody knows that.
Yep.
Nobody's going to say this is the absolute best church in the world. Everybody's got something to say that the church isn't perfect in this area, but it's great with the message.
Yep.
There's always issues in those wells, but
Yeah, that's going to be our biggest topic that we talk about today is the church and issues that we personally have with it, issues that people that we know have experienced, stuff like that.
and the non-Christian people.
Yeah,
Because there's a
absolutely.
lot of negativity of the church, especially the Catholic Church, amongst non-Christians
Yeah,
in
I'm
this
not
day and age.
super familiar with that, but I know you know
Yep.
a fair amount about that. But we actually got inspired to do this. It was really kind of a overwhelming thing throughout the past year and a half or 2 years.
Yeah, it's probably been 2.5 years actually.
Yeah.
'Cause we went to a movie and it was God's Not Dead 2, and
Yep.
kind of thought about things, and then just never did anything. Kind of had life happen, like everybody does.
It always comes up. But then we actually went to God's Not Dead 3 here just, about a month ago now.
Yeah, about a month.
And we just got to talking right after the movie, and it just really hit us about what's really going on in the world, and it's only gotten worse since 2 came out.
Yep, absolutely. It's gotten a lot worse, actually. I mean, just look at this presidential election that
Yeah.
happened. There was a whole big deal with that, and we'll leave that off. But
Yeah, maybe we
you know,
shouldn't get into that quite
yeah,
yet.
we won't get into that. But I'm just saying that's one of the one issue that we've noticed has transitioned a lot of millennials to why we want to talk about
Absolutely. And I think,
situations.
honestly, our generation that's coming up right now is probably, in my opinion, the worst generation we have ever had.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's definitely a bold statement, but from where I'm standing, when I'm looking in, I'm an outside guy looking in,
Right.
and it does not look good. It does
Well,
not look promising.
we're the first generation that are actually supposed to die before our parents. When you look at that statistic, and that's not necessarily on a Christian point of view. That's just in general.
Yeah,
There's some issues with what's going on with situations. So
yeah, absolutely.
I definitely agree. We're probably the worst generation. It's a bold statement, and I mean, a lot of people will say World War II generation had some issues with Hitler and some other issues. But
Yeah, but I'm speaking more of a American generation
That's true.
perspective.
Okay.
I would say I wouldn't include us in all of the
That's
other
fair.
ones, but I would say from an American standpoint, from our entire society, our generation is probably one of the worst that we have. Because even if you go back, to the 80s, the hippie era,
Sure.
they were doing the same type of thing, but they were fighting for a clear purpose. You knew what they were fighting for.
That's true.
And if you look at today's, with all, we're both on the conservative side.
Sure.
I don't like saying that I'm conservative because I don't agree with a lot of stuff that they do as well.
Sure.
But if you look at all the super far left liberals, there's no clear message there.
No, it just they jump from one topic to another.
Exactly.
And that's one thing that the conservative side we jump around too. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Absolutely.
But there's less of it. There's more of a you kind of see a purpose, even though it's not full purpose. You kind of see one.
I guess there's a little bit, but that could be our
Point of view.
Point of view because
Exactly.
that's where we tend to lean towards.
Sure.
But I don't know. I don't really like either side because if you look at the politicians and all of them, they're all the same. They all lie. They're all a joke.
How do you know a politician's telling the truth when he's off the stands, pretty much?
Exactly.
Up till that point,
he's
nobody's
always getting
perfect.
money from somebody.
Exactly. Well, that's
And
that's part of the game. That's what the game is nowadays, and it's
yeah.
wrong. It shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's how it has to go. So let's jump back into the topic that we were originally going to discuss about the church.
Yeah.
I know you've had your issues with it. I've had mine, probably not as many.
Sure.
Because I always went to the same church. I still do. Growing up, I do not get there very often. Probably not enough. But let me put this out there first. The premise of church, the whole idea behind church, it's a great idea.
Absolutely.
It's an awesome idea.
Absolutely.
But it's not practiced in the proper way.
That is true.
When you go to church, and this is my biggest pet peeve with church, nothing is real. You get to church, and everybody's, more or less, it's called a Sunday Christian. So for 2 hours a week, you put on your nice clothes, you go to church, you sing some songs, you pray, you listen to the preacher, and that's fine. And then you go home, and everything that you just heard, you don't practice.
That's true.
I find that with all of my friends that I do go into church. We go into church and, be like, yeah, and I'm like, man, this guy actually seems like a cool guy. You hang out outside of church, swearing left and right. We'll get into that issue later. But just everything that he talks about, everything that he does not resemble anything that you thought it was. There's just too many fake people inside of the church, and that's honestly my biggest pet peeve with it, is that I shouldn't say nobody, but the majority of people that do go to church are not genuine about what they do. They don't practice the correct way.
Yeah, they don't. A lot of people end up being, I call it fake Christians, because they go to church, they put on their Sunday best, like you're saying,
Yep.
they do the motions, and then Monday rolls around, and hey, I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah, F this, F
Yep.
that. I'm going to go bang all these people I have to voice 3 times.
Exactly, and so, there's a lot of issues that we run into with the church.
Yep.
A lot of non-Christians that I've talked to, that's their issue. They walk in a door, and they are frowned upon because they have a piercing, because they have a tattoo, because they have that kind of issues, at least churches I've been to.
Yeah.
If you're not in this mold of what they think a Christian looks like, you're not a Christian. Now, we can look at some things and say, okay, is that Christian-like? Is having a full arm sleeve Christian-like? I can't judge that. I'm not God. So I'm not going to judge that. But a lot of people at churches feel that's against the rules.
They do, but they also have no background, no standpoint on why it is. They just say, oh, well, I don't like that. And a lot of people, I should not even say that, but they probably associate a tattoo sleeve with maybe a gang, maybe a criminal, maybe something like that. But it's not the proper, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but not the proper association.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because just because
absolutely.
you have some tattoos, just give a piercing,
Right.
whatever. Doesn't affect your beliefs, your mindset.
Well, we can't judge people's hearts. That's where, as the
absolutely.
Christian community, we always fall short. We want to judge somebody because of the way they look, and I'm not saying us in general, but the Christian community, that's how they like to talk, is, they don't look right, they don't do this right, they're not a Christian. But we don't know their heart. We don't know where they're at with their relationship with God. And how do we know that the guy who walks in with a full arm sleeve isn't searching for God, and as soon as he walks through the door, he's judged, and he feels completely betrayed by God and the church.
Exactly. Because you get all the people, even if they're 67 years old, the elders, we have elders in our church that do roles in the church. And if you walk in with that stuff on your body and you get judged by those people, what do you think the rest of the church is going to do? They're thinking, oh, great, now this guy doesn't like me, nobody's going to accept me. What is the point of this? And they look at Christians with that whole mindset now because one person treated them wrong.
Well, that's it.
And that's a big problem with it,
It's a huge problem with it, and we continuously run into it. It's not getting solved through the church. And it's supposed to be a place where you can feel safe, and comfortable and loved, and it's the complete opposite. You feel betrayed, hurt, and judged the entire time you're there.
Exactly.
And, I mean, even me, I walk into a church because I'm still searching for the right church. You walk in, and you get glaring faces. Who is this guy?
Yeah,
there's
who's
not
this
a welcoming
new guy that just showed up?
There's not a welcoming party. There's not somebody saying, hey, how are you? How you doing? None of that. Just all that situation that we deal with as a Christian, as a, I don't have tattoos, I don't have piercings, but I still deal with it. So I can understand why people who walk into a church feel judged without even doing anything wrong.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've experienced at my church, and I get where they're coming from, but they despise upon a girl wearing a bikini. They don't even like that. They don't like seeing a guy swim without his shirt off, or with his shirt off. I partially do understand their mindset on that because you're trying to avoid lusting over somebody, but at the same time, as long as your intentions aren't to show off your body, it doesn't matter what you wear or don't wear.
Well, and it's hard now and I'll pick girls individually there. The bikinis now don't cover much. It's hard to find a bikini that covers a good amount of your body.
Yeah.
So I can understand the church's point of view on that. However, if you want more followers of Christ, if you want them to accept Jesus, that's not the way you go about it. They're in a bikini and you see them at a pool. You don't go and say, well, you're not supposed to wear that. That's the wrong way to handle it. If you want to do it later on and say, hey, I'm just kind of wondering, that's a different situation.
Yeah, but
I try to stay clear of it.
Yeah, but even then, I don't even think that it's a church's place to say you cannot wear these clothes because there's nothing that says, okay, well, you're not allowed to wear a bikini because it shows your stomach.
Right.
I mean, like, if it's like a thong bikini with your whole butt's hanging out, that's a different story.
Well, even then, though, it's not their place.
It's not the church's place to say, hey,
it's their husband, it's their mom, it's their wife, it's their brother, their sister, their mom, whoever.
It's not your point as another Christian to judge somebody else based on their clothing. It's their parents or their significant others' job to handle that.
Now, if there was a different situation, we'll just kind of do a hypothetical here.
Yep.
They're at a beach. They go to church, they're hanging out with their friends, and they're saying, hey, I'm wearing this to show off to that guy over there. There's a different point of view at that point. Now, is it the right time? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But as a Christian follower, they're lusting after something.
Yes.
That's a different ball game. That's a different reasoning. That is your place as to say, well, that's not really the right way to go about it.
Yep.
But again, you got to be very careful.
It's a tough subject to get onto.
It's very tough.
But I don't think that, and what some people will do is as soon as they notice that, they're going to run right up and go, hey, you can't be doing that.
Well, that's it.
And they're going to try to attack them.
Yep.
And you cannot go about it with that mindset. What you should do is wait, maybe give them a phone call, shoot them a text, and say,
wait till church.
Hey, do you have a second? I just want to talk to you a little bit, and say, hey, I'm just worried about you. I happen to be around and I noticed this happening.
Right.
I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Right.
But they don't go about it that way.
No, it's accusations, it's gossip. They literally talk behind people's backs about it.
100%.
Yeah, and so, I don't like confrontation. I hate it. It's uncomfortable, everything's bad. But when you as a Christian want to go into it, you have to go to the person. You can't go to, hey, Quinn, did you hear what John did over the weekend?
No.
He was smoking and drinking and everything. That's the wrong way to handle it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't do that. Go to John and say, okay, John, why? What's the problem? Is there a problem in your family? Is there, I want to be there to help you.
Yeah, and you want to say, you want to give them an outlet. You want to say, hey, have you been struggling with stuff? What's going on? What can I do for you?
Exactly.
How can I help you get back on the right track?
Exactly.
I mean, going back on the confrontation thing, I have a different standpoint slightly on that. Sure. I referee hockey. That's my career goal. That's what I'm trying to do for a living. So confrontation is the biggest part of the job.
Well, sure.
You get people trying to yell at you. They try to argue stuff, and you have to confront that immediately, and you have to deal with all that confrontation. Sure. So I have a different standpoint on it. I am more used to it.
Sure.
And I understand what's really going on.
Sure.
But I still try to, with that being said, I still try to avoid it in the church because it's a completely different ballgame.
Well,
I've learned how to handle that better, especially with my job.
Sure.
Learning how to come about those things in different ways.
Sure.
But it's still a really, you're kind of walking on broken glass there because you get some people that are super, if you try to say, hey, I saw you've been kind of having a tough time, do you want to talk? And they're really, no. They're going to jump in your throat. They don't want any of your help.
Sure.
And you get other people that will break down in tears as soon as you say that, So there's kind of two ends of the spectrum there.
Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, that's where the whole part in the Bible, turn the other cheek, comes in. Because you do run into that issue of they're there, criticizing, hitting you, because that's probably how they're handling things. So it's to attack. They don't want to talk about it. They want to attack you because it gets them off the hook.
Yeah.
Then you have the other side that'll break down immediately because their emotions are running wild.
Yeah.
Normally this is between a guy and a girl.
Yeah.
A guy normally will yell out, lash out, and condemn you, and the girls normally will break down in tears and ask to talk for an hour and a half, which is fine. Both ways are fine, but you've got to be able to handle that.
You got to know
differently who the person is.
Well, it also depends on so if a guy's approaching a girl or if a girl's approaching a guy, those are going to be the two scenarios. But if you get two guys and they're best friends and the one guy approaches him, it's going to be a completely different scenario. They're going to end up. He's probably not going to cry, but he's going to open up a little bit, be a little bit more honest about what he's been struggling with and what he's been dealing with. Whereas, if you get two girls, they're probably still going to cry. Let's be honest. But
probably.
But yeah, it's just a different scenario depending on what's going on. But you still got to find the best way to handle it. And as Christians, it's not our place, and we're not supposed to judge people.
Right.
No matter how bad they are, no matter what bad thing they do, we're supposed to forgive them and love them, no matter what.
Well, sin is sin. Anybody who reads the Bible, even if you don't read the Bible, sin is sin. And we all do it. That's why Jesus died on the cross for us, was because he wanted to annihilate sin through him.
Yep.
And so that's where we go wrong a lot of ways. But, to touch back on the best friend situation, exactly. You have to know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
If you don't have a relationship with the guy or girl, as a single Christian man, to go up to a single Christian woman or even a non-Christian woman can be intimidating for two reasons. One, you're trying to do it out of love for the person without being attracted.
Exactly.
That can be very hard to navigate, especially if you have an attraction.
Yep.
So you have to be careful with that. On the other end of it, as a guy, talking to a guy, if you don't know the person, the best way to do it is to invite them out for dinner or a quick basketball, football, soccer, some kind of game that they enjoy, video games. Try to get to know the person before you dive into what you want to talk about. Because if you're not in a relationship standpoint, they're not going to hear what you have to say most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have that. You have to build that relationship. You got to build a rapport with them before trying to say, hey, you should do this because this is what I do. If you walk up to some random guy in the street and you go, hey, are you a Christian? And they say, no. You got to go, well, you should be because I am.
Exactly.
It doesn't work because he has no idea who you are.
Nope.
He doesn't know anything about you. He doesn't know what you believe. He doesn't know how good of a person you are. And if you go to talk to somebody and they go, man, this guy's really cool. He's really genuine. He's honest. And he's just an awesome person. You're going to have a better standpoint of them understanding why you believe what you believe. And you don't want to go at it with the mindset of, I have to convince every single person to be a Christian to do that. That's not the mindset you want. You want to go, hey, listen, I want you to do this, but if you don't have to, you don't have to. I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to treat you exactly the same way.
Well,
but I think you should do this because this is going to be the best thing in the end.
Well, it's going to heal you. I mean, we've all, I'm sure you've been in situations too where something has happened, and without God, you would have been lost in that situation.
Absolutely.
And that's where a lot of the non-Christians deal with. They're lost. They don't understand how to get to be healed. They don't understand how this hurt is ever going to go away. And that's where that becomes your biggest weapon in the fight against the devil and what you're serving is for Jesus. Because you have that outlet. You have that, yes, it hurts, yes, it sucks. Life sucks right now. But I can always lean back on God to make it better.
Yeah, he's your rock to lean against.
Exactly.
If you're going through a tough time or anything, And I'll tell you what, sometimes, you'll be praying and it doesn't seem like he's there.
Oh, exactly.
I've had plenty of those where I'm in a tough situation. I'm broken and there's no help. There's nothing there to seem like to save me. Like it's a struggle sometimes to be able to think, well, I've been praying, I'm not getting the answer. I'm not.
Yep.
It feels like there's nobody there for me.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it just happens.
Sure.
It could be, some of this stuff hasn't happened yet. I'm
Right.
praying about stuff that I've never gotten an answer, and that it probably never will.
Right.
But I've had other stuff that a year later, this pops up. I'm like, it finally came.
Sure.
It finally answered me. It finally came full circle. I
Right.
understand why that happened. I understand what I have to do.
Right.
It's the type of thing with starting this podcast.
Right.
It's the same type of thing. We just got spoke to, and now we have to do this. I feel
Right.
like we have to do this.
Well, right, but going off of that, a few months back, I had my foot crushed at work. Coil of steel, 1,700 pounds,
Yeah.
tipped right over on my foot. I was out. So you start asking why. I had another job lined up. It was already set. I was done. I was putting my 2 weeks in on Monday. This happened on a Friday. So why does this happen? What's the purpose? I don't understand why you let this happen. And of course, that's unfair to say, blame God for that. But that's what goes through your head at the time. Well, come full circle, 6 months later, I found out why. I won't go into that today, but I found out the reason of why that happened, why I went through all of that, and it was to end up helping somebody else.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
That made sense, but
Yep.
it doesn't at the time. So
Yep.
I understand you feel lost, you feel God's not there for you.
Yeah.
Even though he is, it just doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, absolutely. He always is, and he always has a plan,
Exactly.
whether you know it or not. Just like in your example, he had a plan for you, and it
Yep.
wasn't time for you to leave that job yet.
Right.
You had no idea you were about to go. So
Right.
he said, hey, guess what? You're not leaving yet.
Right.
I got to stop you somehow. Here's a broken foot.
Pretty
And,
much.
It's kind of a crappy way to go, but
Kind of.
that's his way of saying, hey, you got to stay here. You got to wait. You got to figure out your purpose here, and then you can move on. Now that you figured out your purpose, now you're going to be getting a job. You're going to be moving here
Right.
soon.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm actually moving to Hawaii sometime or another here.
Yeah.
As soon as
Yeah.
the house sells. So
Getting out of Michigan.
getting out of Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm heading out. I gotta go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe you can find a new football team to root for, because,
You think?
yeah, you saw the NFL draft, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah?
as a Lions fan, atrocious.
Oh,
Atrocious
you're telling
draft.
me. You're
I
telling
mean,
me.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that will listen to this that are Steelers or Pats fans, and they're saying, I don't know what you're talking about. This was a great draft. But as a Lions fan, that happened this last weekend. It was very depressing to watch your team struggle the way they did.
It's not even struggling at this point. It's just
No,
idiocy.
It's struggling because they had so many more opportunities to take a player they needed. And some people will say, well, they addressed a need on the offensive line. It really didn't address it. I mean, yeah, they solved that problem for now. But is he really going to... You're taking a guy, plugging him in, and hoping he's the best player.
Well, I mean, granted, you're doing that in any role, but
You are, but
they
as
could have picked a better, more needed role for their first
Well,
pick.
they could have. They picked the center.
Yeah.
And anybody who follows football knows there are 4 first-round centers in the league right now that are starters. That's not very good for a center role, and most of them were picked 22 or later
Yeah.
in the first round. We
Yeah.
took him at 20. So when you look at that, you're saying, okay, he's supposed to be the elite player of the centers in this draft. He's going to be one of the better centers in the league, is what you're thinking.
Well, you're hoping.
Exactly. And well, even if you're drafting, that's what you're thinking. Obviously, you figure he is going to be this guy.
Yeah.
And I don't believe a center in that role it's too early. They could have waited. They could have tried to trade back and get him at 28, and I would have been a little more accepting of it.
Oh, absolutely.
But, that's just a little short bit of my frustration. But, there were a lot of surprises in the draft. First overall pick, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Never thought he'd go 1.
No.
They picked Saquon Barkley at 2. Giants made an intelligent decision, but nobody thought Baker was going to go first. Nobody thought Rosen was going to fall to 10.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that happened in that draft that you can look back and say, was it really a good draft for certain things? But it was exciting. So a
Yeah,
lot of
I'll
people.
tell you what, the Red Wings had a good lottery.
Did they now?
Yeah, they ended up jumping up to, I believe it's number 6.
Nice.
I should be accurate there.
Sure.
I still don't like the lottery, personally. I mean, if you're in last place, you get the first pick. If you're in first place, you should get the last pick. Not
Right.
have a bunch of names in a hat, and if you're in last, you get 2 extra names in your hat. And,
Right.
You know, it's not the exact example of it, but
It's
I don't
close.
know.
It's
It
close.
is. I mean, Buffalo finally came in last and got the first pick, so that's
Right.
good for them. I actually know some guys out in New York, so
Okay.
they're pretty happy about that.
Sure.
But it's just a tough thing to have to see your team do so bad. I'm a
Sure.
huge Red Wings fan. They suck.
Yep.
I'll be the first one to tell you they are atrocious. I do not get it. I do not understand. I do understand a little bit of it, Ken Holland,
Well,
but not going to drop any names, Ken Holland. But we're trying. I don't know.
didn't he
just-
just get a 2-year contract too?
I
Doesn't that make you
think-
just so happy?
Man, I'll tell you what. I'm over all the sports teams in Detroit. They
Yep.
all suck.
Yep.
The Tigers suck. The
Yep.
Lions suck. The Red
Yep.
Wings suck. The Pistons, unfortunately, might be one of the best teams in Detroit.
I don't know. They on paper they are.
On paper, yeah.
but
That's horrible. The Pistons are always one of the worst.
Yep.
The Pistons are always third. The Lions are always the worst.
Right.
And the Pistons and the Tigers and
Yep.
the Red Wings. That's just
Right.
how it goes.
Yep. And now it's actually Lions, Pistons, Tigers, Red Wings, or you can switch those two around. But that's how it is right now.
Yeah, it's
And
absurd.
It's a very interesting situation that we have right now because Detroit to be first, the Lions to be first, hell could freeze over.
Oh, yeah.
That's how this is. But you were talking a little bit earlier about the church and whatnot, and you had said you had seen something online about a hurricane with Joel Osteen in a church.
Yeah,
what was the
that thing.
situation?
So, I'm sure a lot of people, I'm sure you've seen a little bit of it.
Yeah.
What happened is, so, he's supposed to be a Christian. He claims to be a Christian. I say claims because I don't really believe him.
Okay.
He doesn't live the role like he's supposed to. He is rich, very rich, which there's nothing wrong with being rich as a Christian.
Sure.
Nothing at all.
No.
Anybody who says that is not very intelligent, in my opinion. But he, during Hurricane Harvey, he has his church down in Texas. I think that's his main church, his
Okay.
biggest church. He has multiple of them. And during the hurricane, everybody, their houses are getting destroyed. They're looking for shelter. Well, if you read the Bible, what you're supposed to do as a Christian is welcome everybody. Give them, if you have the opportunity, your job is to help them. It's to give them a place to stay, a roof over their head, clothes.
Well, especially as a church.
Yeah. He closed his church during the hurricane. He did end up opening, but he closed his church saying that it's under renovation. So it would not, quote unquote, ruin his church. And, he got so much, negative feedback for that. He ended up having to open it. And he did open his doors to let people in, but he originally was not going to let people in.
Right.
That is, in my opinion, especially in his role as a big figure, and as a pastor, as a minister, whatever you want to call him, that's his role to make sure his doors are open, make sure that you're helping those people that are in need, that are losing everything.
Well, the thing is, he's probably the face right now of Christianity.
Unfortunately,
I mean,
yes.
Billy Graham was for a long time. He was the face of Christianity, but he actually lived it. I'm not saying he was perfect. No man is, or no pastor is, or evangelist, or however you want to phrase it. But nonetheless, he at least lived a majority of what he was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. No Christian's perfect.
No,
I'm not perfect.
nobody
You're not
is.
perfect.
No,
not
heck
even
no.
close. Not even close.
No one
But
is.
if you're in a role like that, apologize.
No problem.
It,
He's choking a little bit. Guys. No, I get what you're saying.
too much water. But if you're in that role and you close down your church, that is the worst possible thing you could ever do.
Yeah, well, you're literally saying, hey, my church is more important than you, the people. That is not supposed to be that
You're
way.
supposed to be closer to God than everybody and move people closer.
Even if you're not in that role, like you were saying, our job is to help people.
Yep.
And
you got to open up your doors. You got to let
Yeah.
people in. You got to let them there. This really, when I heard about this, I got really mad.
Well,
'Cause
yeah.
It's giving me and you as Christians a bad name because of what he did.
well, exactly.
And it doesn't affect us, and we don't like it at all.
Well, no, he's like I said right now. If you ask, most people know who Joel Osteen is.
Unfortunately.
Exactly, and that's what we're deeming as a Christian. And I'm not gonna bash the man. I don't know the man's heart. I can't say for sure what the man is.
Yep.
If he's a follower, I'm sure he is, but his actions do not speak that way. They don't speak that way. They
Yep.
speak as a man who is selfish, self-centered, and it's about me
Yep.
and my church and my material items. The church building is not the church.
No. The people are the church.
The people are the church. God is the church.
Yep.
We are the followers of Christ, but God is the church. God's Not Dead 3 is a prime example of that. I'm not going to ruin the movie for anybody, but there's some situations that go around that movie that in the end you see what that entails.
Yeah.
It's not the building, it's the heart is God first.
Yeah.
The people come in, and it's a church.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't have to go to a specific building to be a church.
No.
If you get 5 people together in a basement, 2 people together in a basement,
Exactly.
and have a conversation like this could be considered church.
Oh, exactly.
It's just Christians coming together to celebrate the life of Jesus Christ.
Well,
it's
exactly.
really all that it is, right?
That's what it's supposed to be. And people there's a lot of gray areas that people look at when it comes to Christianity, and we're all guilty of that. There's all situations, even in the Bible, pastors will disagree on what this passage means.
Yeah, or how to interpret certain laws.
Right.
There's certain ways that we're supposed to live by. I mean, I've had a lot of that. I mean, there's a lot of that within Christians.
Oh, exactly. And, we ourselves don't have the same views. There's gray areas in our own.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the one pretty solid ungray area is when you're talking about sex before marriage.
Oh, exactly.
I think that's one thing that if you are a Christian, I do not believe that you can have any other opinions on that subject.
Correct.
Everything else, more or less, is wide open for discussion.
Yep. Yeah.
But that's one thing that is very clear, that you're not allowed to have sex until you are married.
Yep. There's that, and then it's pretty much, I'm not trying to bash anybody here, but it's not lay with a man when you're a man, or lay with a woman when you're a woman. And again, I'm not going to touch on that topic very much.
Yeah, I think we should save that for another day.
Exactly, but that's pretty clear too as a Christian. It's one man, one woman, it's black and white, it's there.
Yep,
and no sex before marriage. So it's pretty easy on that one. But you're right, there's a lot of questions on is drugs illegal, is drugs wrong, because technically marijuana is a plant. So it's
God
a natural
put the plant on the earth. And
exactly.
That's a good discussion to get into.
Exactly.
But I mean, there's just sex is so black and white.
Exactly.
That's one thing that you should not have to do and have anything issues with it. And I mean, I would even say that divorce is not black and white compared to sex.
Right.
It's really, in my belief, it's not. I understand the societal benefits of it. I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing if you're looking at a society standpoint. But from a Christian perspective, I mean, I haven't done a lot of research on divorce itself.
Sure.
I've done a lot on sex, a bunch of other topics, but I haven't really studied divorce.
Right. Well, we're not there yet. We're not at a point where we're married. We're both single, so we're not at a point where we're thinking about even relationships, let alone divorce situations.
Yeah, it's more of what I've been told and what I've heard.
Sure.
And I've been told that it is wrong, that once you get married, that's who you're with. But I've never looked into the Bible for anything like that, because granted, they had 12 wives back then.
In the Old Testament.
That was in the Old Testament. Now we're following the New Testament laws of today.
Correct. But yet a lot of people still follow the Ten Commandments. So there's, again, where, there is a law there.
Well, the difference between that, though, and this is what I tell a lot of people, I'm really glad they brought that up, that Jesus reinforces the Ten Commandments in the New Testament. Okay, there's some stuff, for example, I had an argument with this about somebody, and it's not called a discussion, it's called an argument. We had an argument about what it's called. And it used to be not allowed to cut your hair in the Old Testament. You used to not be allowed to cut your hair as a woman.
Right.
In the New Testament, that's something that you are allowed to do.
Right.
Okay, there's no law against against cutting your hair.
Right.
Right, you're allowed to cut your hair. And this girl that I was talking to is actually, she claims to be a Christian. And I say claims again because I don't believe it.
Right.
And she's bisexual.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
And exactly. And her reasoning for that being okay is, well, hey, everybody cuts their hair. That's already not allowed. So if they're going to sin like that, I can sin like this.
And it's the same sin.
And technically it is the same sin. It's the same degree. Every degree is the same.
Right.
But it's okay because they're going to still get to heaven. So am I.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. Is it, though? I mean, sin is sin, we know. But even because I actually have studied a little bit more on the Ten Commandments, because it's always one of those, situations where it's an Old Testament law. Is it really a New Testament law? So, of course it is. Murder is murder. But, and like you said, Jesus does reinforce it. But he also reinforces that two are above all. You've got no other false gods before me
Yeah.
as one, and
Yeah.
do not covet thy neighbors. That's the 2.
Yeah.
So you have those, he himself puts them above even the other 8.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I'm not a pastor. I have not studied the Bible thoroughly.
Yeah,
But
nothing like most of them have.
Correct. Now, from my understanding of what that means is, sin is sin, it's wrong, doesn't matter, we're all sinning.
Yep.
But are there sins that are worse? It's possible, according to what God is saying in that reference. Now, again, that's a gray area.
Yeah, absolutely. From what I've heard on that subject, any pastor that I've talked to is, no matter how you sin, it's still the same. It's still the same degree of sin, whether you sin once or 5 times.
Right.
Obviously, each sin individually, but say that you have sex or you shoot somebody.
Right, same sin.
Those in God's eyes are the same.
Sure.
Right? It's still a sin.
Right.
But if you go back to what I was saying about this girl that I was having a discussion with, what I tried to bring up was, well, listen, people don't believe that cutting their hair is wrong. They understand that it is okay now, and I'm trying not to insult her when I'm saying this.
Right.
I'm trying to say, listen, I understand where you're coming from, but you really aren't wrong. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Well,
you're just wrong. I didn't say that to her. I'm not going to say that to her.
Well, back to your original point.
Respectful.
Well, back to your original point. Sin is sin.
Yeah.
If you're doing it wrong intentionally, it's still sinful.
If you're intentionally sinning, I think that it's worse, and I think that in that situation that I just pointed out, that she is extremely at fault. It is kind of living in the danger zone, because if you're cutting your hair, but you don't think that it's a sin, you don't know that it's a sin.
Right.
It's not bad. It's like people who are not Christians who have never heard the word of God.
Right.
They could sin every single day of their lives.
And not know it.
Right. And they just think that it's okay.
Right.
That it's okay. As soon as they find the word of God and they accept it, they have to change. And most of the time they do change. And all those sins that they had, they're completely forgiven for.
Right. Well, and that's the
We're
thing.
forgiven for all of our sins, even though that we know, and we still
do. And we still fall short. Don't get me wrong. If we're talking about an attractive woman, and I'll just pick on, a girl that I find attractive in Hollywood, Anna Kendrick. I find her attractive.
I knew you were going there.
Well, yeah, we have to. But my point is, I'm technically lusting after the girl if I think anything other than she's attractive. If I think...
I mean, you could even argue that thinking that she's attractive...
Could be, exactly. And again, that's a gray area. But I don't feel like if I say, she's a good-looking woman, that's a sin.
Yeah.
I'm just stating a point. You could be dating Halle Berry, and I would still say, you know what, Halle Berry's...
I probably wouldn't.
I know, but my point is, I would still probably say, dang, she's a good-looking woman. I don't think that's sinful. I'm not lusting after her. I'm not wanting her for myself.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, she's attractive.
Yeah.
But as soon as that translates from any part of her body, and I'm not going to pick one, but any part,
good choice,
her legs or feet, anything, that's more of a lust. Now I'm lusting after a desirable part of the woman.
Yeah, I like you pointing at legs and feet instead of going for anything.
Well, yeah, we got to, I'm trying to keep this clean here. Every guy here knows what we're talking about, so we're going to...
I think anybody on Earth over the age of 6 knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, so back to the church itself. Overall, what is your view that needs to change?
My view that needs to change is just the overall fakeness of people inside the church. That's my biggest problem with it. I've never had, personally, I've been judged in the church. I understand what it feels like, and I approached it. I addressed it and said, hey, this isn't right. And I'm that kind of guy, especially because of my job. I'm going to go up to you. I'm going to say my mind, and I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm not going to put a censor over my mouth and go, well, listen, I don't want to offend anybody here today. Can I help you? No. I'm going to go up and I'm going to tell you, listen, that's not going to happen today. That's not how we're going to do this. And that's just the kind of person that I am.
Sure.
So I've gone up to him and told him straight up, you're not going to do that. You're a Christian. You're not going to judge me because of something that I did. Right. If you want to ask me, if you want me to talk about it, I would love to. I'd love somebody to confide in, somebody to talk to.
Sure. I
don't have that with you. It's not your place as a fellow Christian to judge me.
Sure.
And I'm not going to allow you to do that for your sake and for mine.
Right. And I take the less passive-aggressive approach when it comes to situations. Don't get me wrong, I've confronted people. I try to avoid it. It's not my comfort level.
That's completely fair.
Yep, there's been times where it's either you do that or you walk away. I've walked away because it saves space for a lot of things, a lot of reasons.
Yep.
One of them was a pastor's daughter. How do you argue with that? Yes, I had my say. I did what I wanted to say. She didn't take it well. I backed off. It's not worth the confrontation at that point.
Yep, and when you're talking about a woman, it's a different story. Completely different story. But in my example, I was talking about another
Sure.
guy that I was talking to, and I found that if you do that, two things are going to happen. Either because from my standpoint, I will always give you a second chance. I'll always give you a third chance. Pushing that is kind of tough, just from a human standpoint. It's tough to get past that.
Sure.
But I'm always going to open up, and if you do want to talk and have a calm conversation about something,
sure,
I will gladly talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start getting heated, I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to stop it right there.
Well, then sometimes you have to.
Yeah, but I found that either they're going to say, screw you, I don't like this person's just a joke, blah, 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 or they're going to have 1,000% more respect for you.
Sure.
And you're going to end up becoming friends. They're going to end up saying, hey, this came up, man. Can you help me out? Absolutely. I'd love to.
Sure.
And most of the time, it leads towards that.
Sure.
I've had those situations with people, and they respect you a lot more coming out of it. And you have a mutual understanding of, hey, I'm not going to mess with you, but you're not going to push me back.
Right. Well, there has to be boundaries in anything. There's topics that you don't talk about. I mean, you can ask a married man. Most married Christian men are not going to allow a friend to talk about his wife in an inappropriate manner.
Yeah.
There's boundaries, and that has to be the same thing in Christianity. I hang out with a lot of non-Christian people.
Absolutely.
And they know that you stand up right there. I'm a Christian. I don't appreciate that.
Yeah.
You have to.
You have to. And I'll tell you what, from that standpoint, especially being involved in hockey, it is extraordinarily tough.
Sure.
Because it's just such a bad non-Christian environment, and this is a huge topic that I really want to discuss is swearing.
Oh, sure.
Because that is a huge thing, and I probably have a much different opinion on it than you do.
Maybe.
I have definitely, but we'll definitely see. I definitely bounce back and forth a lot about is it okay, is it not?
Yep.
Because I haven't done the deepest digging. I haven't studied the Bible like all these ministers and everybody has. But there's no place in the Bible where it says that you're not allowed to use a certain word. Now, I'm not going to use them out here just for other issues.
Parental guidance and
PG
version.
All that stuff. But, if there's the only thing that you're not allowed to say is GD and JC in a condemning way. You're not allowed to use the Lord's name in vain. That's one thing, 100%. Yep. Never use those words.
No gray area, black and white.
Absolutely. But everything else, I have bounced back and forth to the point where it's okay to say all those words. No, it's not. Maybe it is. No, it's not. And there's that I have ever found no definitive answer on what you can say and what you can't in that regard.
Yeah, the only thing that I've seen on it that I've studied, and again, same situation. I am not a pastor. I'm not a leader. I'm not a preacher. But the only thing that I've seen is if you're deliberately doing it to harm, that I have seen as it can be taken as a sinful act. Now, again, gray area, not saying it's right.
Yeah, but then you can go back to the point of, okay, come on, it's a verbal thing. You're just saying something. It's not actually harming anybody unless they have a mental disease.
Right.
That's another thing that you would really have to focus on and have to be aware of.
Well, for sure.
But go ahead.
I was just going to, there's lots of, I'm in a manufacturing position. It ain't any different than a hockey position.
Yeah.
They're all sailors. They all slur. And there are times where you come across an individual who you get in a heated conversation, and as a Christian, I probably handled it wrong. But you get in a situation where the only way they understand you is to say it back.
Yeah.
And that's their respect term.
Yeah.
If you're not saying it, they're not respecting it. And don't get me wrong.
And I'll tell you what, last night I had to ref a hockey game, and I definitely used some language that is questionable as a Christian, I will say. But there's from my standpoint, there's no evidence that saying any of that is bad. And I will say this, one thing that I heard is that swearing in the United States before, way hundreds of years ago when we were just coming in, the cursing per se came, and my information is not going to be 100% accurate. I'll tell you this. I'm probably going to mess some of this stuff up. Look it up for yourselves. Um, I'm pretty sure, from my memory, it's been a while, they came from the French. And that
Oh yeah. Yep.
they came, am I okay?
Yep, absolutely
So
correct.
they came over, and until then, we used all the language that we wanted except for using the Lord's name in vain.
Sure.
And that was completely acceptable. And the French said, oh, no, you can't say this, and you can't say that, you can't say that, and all these different things. And I think that might be where some of the political correctness originated a long time ago.
Right.
But that's where it really started. That's where it started of cursing is bad. And that's where I think, okay, so these are just two people that had opposite views, and we just decided, okay, we're just going to accept all of
Adapt
theirs.
that view.
And I don't agree with that. I'm not going to adapt that view, and I don't think that. I'm not going to say that I don't think that it's wrong. I do not know.
Right.
I 100% do not know.
Sure.
And I use the language, and what I do is after I do, when I happen to, because I do, it happens. You know, like at your job, at my job,
Exactly.
it happens. When I'm out of that, I do not use it as much as I can.
Correct. Well, that's it.
But when I do use it, I say, I always pray and I say, I'm not sure if that was wrong or not, but if it is, I'm asking for forgiveness.
Well, that's it. I mean, and there's other words, not even curse words, that are questionable, and I'm not going to name them, but there are racial words, and I'm not just picking one. There are lots of them.
Yeah.
Are they wrong? I mean, literally, if you go back to certain words' definitions, it doesn't mean a particular race.
Well, like, okay, say that, a couple that are married are
Sure.
about to have sex.
Right.
And he says, I want to F you.
Right. Is it wrong?
That's using the word in
Right.
the proper terminology in that.
Sure.
So even if that is considered a swear word, it is considered wrong outside of that, telling it to somebody, it's not wrong in that aspect because you're using that word
Right.
for its purpose, just like a female dog. If you decide,
Right.
I don't get what the point would be, but if you
Right.
decide to say, oh, that,
Right.
you can fill the blank there, the B, to the
Right.
female dog,
Right.
there's nothing bad about that. I don't know what context you would actually be using that in, but there's
Right.
nothing bad about that context.
Well, there's a lot of slang words that were used for men, women, children, lots of them that nowadays are deemed unacceptable.
Yeah.
And it's one of those situations that it's one of those gray areas again that we deal with that we don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some pastors will say it's completely fine. Other pastors will say it's not okay at all. I would say overwhelmingly the church body of Christ will say it's wrong.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're right either.
No,
so
not
I
at
mean,
all.
there's a lot of situations that we deal with, as Christians in the church or outside of the church, that it's a struggle.
Yeah, I absolutely think it is, and it's the same type of thing with alcohol if you look at it, because there's a lot of instances in the Bible, especially, where you'll see him say, enjoy a glass of wine with dinner. He turns water into wine for a party that they're having. Later in that party, he gets mad because everybody's drunk and says that it's bad. And there's also times where he says, don't drink alcohol. So I think it's obviously a very gray area, but from my research that I've done, I've looked into it, I don't think that there's anything wrong with consuming a little bit of alcohol. If you have a beer or two at the end of the night, or you have a glass of wine with dinner, there's nothing wrong with that as long as, obviously you're legal age and everything else. I think that if you do engage in drinking alcohol to get drunk with the intention of getting drunk, or if you do accidentally get drunk, that's when you have an issue because you have to know your limit. You know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. There's a lot of things with it that are very tricky to correspond. It's one of those gray areas that we've been talking about pretty much this whole podcast. And one area is it's actually scientifically proven and medically proven that having a glass of wine every day is good for your heart. It's got different enzymes in it that actually help the heart to be better. So you can't really say too much negative about that in proof. But the downside is most people don't know how to stop with one glass. They like to continue. So It's a very fine line. I don't personally have a problem with somebody having a glass of wine at dinner. It's fine. They're enjoying something. No problem with that. But when you have 2 and then 3, which I've been a part of watching people do, that's when you go on the wrong side of things. But like you said, age limit, I don't agree with our age limit either. I think it should be 18. If you can buy a gun and you can die for this country, you should be able to drink at the age of 18.
Absolutely. I mean, if they're letting people go overseas at the age of 18, they come back in 2 years at 20, and they cannot buy a beer at a bar and just relax a little bit. There's definitely something wrong with that.
Exactly.
I don't know if you actually know this. A lot of my mom's brothers are alcoholics. I think 3 of them are.
They're not.
So that's one thing that I've experienced a lot with in my family of actually being around alcoholism and stuff like that. And it's a bad thing. My one uncle is just in really bad shape. If he died tomorrow, it would not shock me. That's how bad it is. And they've found him passed out on the floor, puke all over himself, stuff like that. Just not even from alcohol, just from his body being so torn up. His liver's gone. And it's a horrible thing to see and experience. So I really have that point of view on it as well. So I get the negativity of that.
Well, sure.
Not only in a Christianity way, but also in a health-wise. Like you said, drinking a glass of wine is okay. It can be good for you. Yeah, but when you're drinking a bottle
Right.
or however much beer you're going to drink, it's very bad for you. It's almost like caffeine.
Right.
If you look into good for you, if you drink a cup or two of coffee, it actually has some good health benefits. It can actually somewhat reverse the effects of alcohol in your liver,
Sure.
believe it or not. But if you're drinking, 5, 6, 7 cups a day, we all know people that do.
A lot of people.
It's really bad for your health.
Yes. Oh, no, it's absolutely true. I mean, my parents are in the health and wellness field, so of course I have a little bit more insight on certain aspects of this.
Yeah.
So you're right, caffeine can have a positive effect if it's the right kind of caffeine. There are several versions, and I'm not picking on any in particular.
Red Bull.
Yep, Red Bull is one that is not one of those that are great for you. But coffee, black coffee especially, great for you. Great.
Yeah.
Great for your body to especially absorb alcohol. That's why a lot of people who are in jobs, when they go out drinking on a Sunday night, end up having black coffee.
Yeah, because it'll help you. Does it help you get over a hangover?
Oh yeah,
faster or
real
something?
fast.
Yeah.
I think they use the term dries you out or sobers you up, I guess would be more in
Well,
depth.
is it a hangover in a way, just a lack of? I don't have any experience.
Right.
We're definitely helping people if they want to get drunk. at
Right,
this point.
yeah, right.
Isn't it just being dehydrated and just getting? If you're so dehydrated, it's like easier to get drunk and stuff like that. Or
I think that's a part of it. I'm with you. I don't know the whole. I mean, I know people who are alcoholics, and
Yeah.
I've never asked them, "How's a hangover feel, or what's it like?" So
I know that it sucks. No bright lights, no loud
Right.
noises.
Yeah, I can buy that, but there is a lot of gray areas with that in the church. I mean, the Catholic Church, for instance, they actually serve actual wine when they take communion.
Well, I don't mind that personally. That's the way that it used to be,
Right.
and I don't see any problem with that. Now, I don't know if there's laws or other people have certain beliefs about giving it to children. Um, I'd say that if you are doing that, there should be an age limit. But if you are doing it in a church environment and for the right reasons, I don't think you should have to be 21. If you want to make it, to a point like, let's say that it's safe for the human body to consume it at 13. So,
Right.
okay, if you're 13, it's a little tiny bit of wine. That's what you use for your communion. I think that's okay.
Right.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Catholics do not do communion every Sunday, do they?
As far as I know, they do.
They do?
Yeah, because they actually have the chalice, I believe is what it's called, or I'm going to botch it because I'm not a Catholic, so that's going to cause me a little bit, but the
That's
chalice, I believe is what it is. They fill that up, and the priest, I can't think today, so the priest actually comes and, blesses the chalice,
Yep.
and then pours the wine in, and does the same thing with the bread.
And they
then
just pass
and they
one
pass-
cup around? Is that what
I
do?
think they have 3 because he has his people help him too, but he's at one, and then there's 2 at 2 other stations. So I did go to a
Okay.
Catholic service a couple years ago. One of my friends' whole family is Catholic, so they invited me to church, and against my better judgment, I went, and I didn't have a problem. No pushing. They said if you feel like you need to take communion, come and take it, but that's an every week thing for them.
Yeah.
Communion's every week. So
That's it's the same thing in my church. It's an every week thing at my church. My grandpa actually goes to, I believe it's a Baptist church.
Okay.
And I've gone there multiple times with him, and they never do it. So he said that they do, but it's like super rare. They only do it like 4 or 5 times a year or something like that. So I don't know what their beliefs or reasoning is behind it.
Well, the reason for communion is to literally cleanse yourself of sins.
Yep.
And when you do it every week, that's fine if you're literally going to cleanse yourself every week. But if you get done with communion and then come home and immediately have 2 beers or 3 beers, you're not really cleansing yourself of something you've been doing if you're doing it in the wrong way. I'll take a different topic. Let's say you're holding on to a grudge. If you go to communion and you take it, okay, that grudge should be gone now, but you're still holding on to it. You're not really getting the point of taking the communion itself.
Well, you can go back to the Catholic Church of
Sure.
confession.
Yep.
I'm sure we all, that's a weekly thing.
Yep. And
they have, you got to do, I don't get it, but you got to do the cross thing and certain things, and apparently that forgives you of your sin.
Right.
Is how they see it. And if that's their belief, I'm not going to say that's wrong. That's perfectly acceptable. That's fine.
Right.
That's great. And that could be right for all that we know. We really don't know.
Right.
We're just trying to pick the best belief system that we can understand.
Correct.
But they will go to confession and they will do the things that they're supposed to do to forgive their sins, and then go back out and do the exact same thing. Like,
correct.
They say, okay, it's okay to swear as long as you come to confession, you confess, and you do this stuff. That's what my interpretation has been in the Catholic Church. And it's the same thing, like, I'm not sure if this is actually true, but from what I've heard, they think that it's okay to swear, it's okay to have sex, it's okay to do these things, it's okay to get drunk. As long as you come to confession, you confess your sins, and you do your thing, you can continue to do it. Well, that's been my interpretation.
Sure. The biggest thing with the Catholic Church is basically the priest is God's understudy, from my understanding as well. And I like I said, I have some friends, so they kind of have enlightened me in some things. My parents also, they were Catholics before they were Christians. Okay. So they kind of have, I've learned some things here and there. Confession is basically, blessed us, O Father, for I have sinned. And then the priest says something back. I can't exactly say what that is because I don't know. But he'll say something back in the instance of, I forgive you, child, or confess your sins. And so what the priest's job is to listen to the sin and then basically tell the person your sins have been forgiven as long as you do 3 Hail Marys and something else. Yeah. So, and that changes throughout the course of everything in that. But they basically have to have a third person in between God and them. That's your priest. Where we have a direct line, we feel. And like you said, we may be wrong. Maybe that's the way to do it. But my biggest problem with the Catholic belief in mostly is purgatory. They believe in purgatory. They believe that you can pray people into heaven. Yeah. In the Bible, that's not the case. That's where my issue comes in. Now, there are new age, Catholics that don't believe in that believe more along the lines of you have to have Jesus as your Lord and Savior and there is no purgatory. Yeah. But the old Catholic Church, that's how it was. You could pray people in. So that's my issue with that part of it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I completely get it. And you could make the same argument about Christians and Christianity and the Christian church.
Absolutely.
Where now you're seeing more people come into the Christian church and saying that, it's, in my understanding of Christianity and politics, it is completely immoral to be a liberal and a Christian. They do not match.
Sure.
I'm not saying that conservatism matches perfectly.
Correct.
But it's a very close mold compared to being a Democrat, being a liberal.
Sure.
So it's almost the same thing because you'll see Christians now saying, "Oh well, I'm gay. It's okay. I'm still going to be a Christian."
Right.
Or what I mean, stuff along those same lines. And it's a sort of new age millennial thing, which, in my opinion, is completely wrong. I do not agree with at all. And I mean, our generation just sucks.
It does when it comes to that. And that's where I feel like, and I don't want to bash anybody who thinks they're a Christian and they're not, but the ones that follow it, I guess is the best way to put it, we have to be careful because we don't want to say negative things to somebody who feels they're a Christian, but we have to set them on the right path too. If they're gay, they're living in sin. It's black and white. It says it right there in the Bible. A man shall not lay with a man. A woman shall not lay with a woman. It's black and white. It's easy to see that. That is sinful. Yep. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not at all. But that is an easy interpretation of saying you're actually living in sin. So that's something we have to be careful with because we can't portray it just like that because, of course, we're not turning them towards God, we're turning them away from God.
Yeah.
So we have to portray it in a careful way, but we have to be real careful in the churches too because the pastors are starting to buy into that. There's a gay pastor now. So how can you have a gay pastor be a Christian teaching the Bible and be living in sin? It's very dangerous where we're going.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's a tough battle for us to have and try to make sure that we keep our morals, our values really strong and do not force other people in the same direction. But you can go back, and I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, say that I'm a gay Christian.
Sure.
And, I ask you, do you ever swear? Well, obviously you're going to say yes.
Sure.
It happens.
Yep.
Well, when you say yes, I'm going to say, well, that sin is the exact same as my sin. And you probably do that more than I do my sin if we're going to say you probably swear more than that person has sex with the other guy.
Sure.
If we're going to use that for the baseline of it.
Sure.
Okay? At that point, then you have to, you can't really win the argument, in my opinion. Like, you're kind of stumped, and I wouldn't really know what to say to that.
The only thing that I can come back with, and it's not going to solve an argument. It's not. There's not a way out of that. You're in a corner. And it's just basically, can you make a jab to try to get out of it?
Yeah.
The only thing I can really say to that is, you're right. I swear I sin. No different than yours. But I try daily to be better.
Yeah.
You're living in it. You're not changing. You think it's acceptable.
Yeah.
I don't. I am trying to better myself. Do I fall every day? Absolutely. But I am trying to better myself to follow Christ-like. And
I think you just meant to say fail every day.
Probably, but hey.
That was a nice one.
I know, hey, what are you going to do?
I got to call you out on it.
Well, of course.
You can also get into the discussion of, because we've talked about are all sins equal?
Right.
And God says yes. And so if you're calling being gay and living that life equal as to swearing, I mean, can you make the argument that, okay, if you cuss somebody out and you swear 5 times, is each one of those tied in together with a sin? Or is it each individual time you sin? Or, because I've also had that question too. What's the line? What's the, are there really, is every sin really the same? Or are there slight variations? Not necessarily saying big variations, but are there small, slight changes in certain sins? And as far as I can tell, stuff that I've looked at, I don't really believe that there are. Every single sin counts on its own, and it's still just as powerful as if you curse somebody out or kill somebody. Those are the same in God's eyes.
Yep, they're the same in God's eyes. The difference is society.
Yeah.
That's how we really deem it. And like I said, you're right. Variations of sin people have portrayed. Some people say, yeah, there's different levels of sin. And my uncle would be one of them. He would say being gay is worse than swearing. I can't necessarily say that's true. I can't say it's not true because I don't know what God's thoughts are.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know God in that way. He's got way better sense of anything than I ever can think of. So even imagine. So I can't answer that effectively. What I would say with are the 5 swear words wrapped into one? No, they're all individual if it's a sin.
Yeah.
Because you're saying it 5 different people, which means 5 different words, which means 5 different sins. So that's how I would look at that. But can you make the argument that if somebody's having sex with another man and you're a man, and there's 5 swear words, 5 verse 1, did he sin more than the guy who had sex with the same guy?
Yeah.
Technically,
exactly.
yeah. He sinned more than that guy did.
Yeah, and that's where I think that the biggest argument would come. That, I'm still sinning less than you.
Right.
I haven't personally had that interaction yet.
Right.
But I feel like that's a really easy one to have,
Oh, yeah, you can. And like I said, I'd go back to my statement that I made. That person isn't trying to be different. They're not trying to follow Christ more like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I ran into a situation probably about a month and a half ago of a friend of mine who is Christian, and he smokes weed.
Okay.
And also I've had other people that smoke cigarettes, and I've had a conversation about them with this. God says your body's a temple.
Right.
So you can make the argument that smoking is sinful.
Correct.
I I don't know. I'm not too sure. I don't really have an opinion on that.
I do, but I'll let you
But
go.
as far as smoking weed, and we'll just do it drugs in general.
Sure.
People say that there's no negative effects of smoking weed, that it cannot harm your body. I disagree.
100%.
My mom does a lot of health and wellness as well, and she will tell you it does do a lot of damage to your brain.
Yep.
Not to your body itself,
Right.
but to your brain,
Correct.
which controls your body. So that could be harming your body, and it's just, you're not supposed to do drugs. You're not supposed to get yourself high, and it says it in the Bible.
Right.
Don't abuse yourself.
Right.
And he doesn't see anything wrong with that. So I tried to have a conversation. I said, hey, have you ever thought about what you're doing and how it relates to being a Christian? And he said, well, it's a natural thing. This is where his argument came from.
Sure.
And I'll tell you how I explained it, but I wanted your opinion on how you would go after this. Well, God created this. He put it on the earth. It's a completely natural thing, so it's okay for us to do. That
Right.
was his argument behind that.
Right. Well, let's put it this way. The plant itself, okay, but they're actually literally burning this plant and putting it in their bodies.
They are, but their argument is they take the plant
Yep.
and they roll it up and they're taking the smoke from the plant. They're not changing it. They're not like taking it into a lab and chemically altering stuff to make
Sure.
it high, like if you're making meth or something, or heroin or something like that.
Right.
That's the argument that they're getting at.
Right, but they're still changing it. Even though they're not changing the integrity of the plant, they're still burning it.
Okay, edibles. They eat weed, they get high. Same argument.
Okay. I don't know of too many people that eat the plants and get high. In that sense, I know if they smoke it, they do. But
If I will tell you this, you've ever heard of pop brownies and stuff like that?
sure,
Or they now make gummy bears. If you go to
Right.
a dispensary,
Sure.
they make gummy bears.
they do.
mixed with it.
They make
So-
a lot of things.
So if you do mix it in there, it will get you high. It will get you generally the same effect. I think it's from what I understand, I know way too many people that do this. It's a different kind of high.
Right.
But you're still getting yourself high. So it's still a sin.
Right. Well, the question for me is on that. They're putting it in a gummy bear. What are they doing to it when they're putting it in a gummy bear? Are they leaving it completely natural and then just putting little bits of it, or are they literally breaking it down and doing something else to it? I don't know. I don't know too much about this area.
Yeah,
But-
let's just stick to, let's say they're baking
A brownie.
the marijuana itself
Sure.
into a brownie,
Mhm.
and you're eating the actual plant inside the brownie. You're getting yourself high,
Right.
and they're saying that it is not a sin because it's a natural forming plant. What would be your take? And you may not have thought about this.
Right.
I have, because I've had the conversation.
Sure.
What's your take on it? What would be your? I don't really want to say angle because that sounds too negotiated, too tactic. But how would you
lawyer.
go about trying to say that you don't believe that that's a good thing for them?
Well, I would still stand by the facts of you're getting high, which means you're not as coherent. So therefore, for me personally, I can't say it's wrong because I don't know much about it other than for if it damages the brain,
Yep.
it's a problem. And even eating pot would damage your brain in a sense. So the fact that you're literally causing yourself to not be coherent, to literally be on a, I know some people say floating mentality is how they think of it. That's how I would probably say. I can't personally say it's wrong because I haven't had the conversation with somebody that's done it.
Yeah, see, and that's where I have had that conversation. I've had to, talk to that person. And basically, the biggest point that I brought up when he said, hey, it's okay because it's natural. I said, it's natural, but the problem is, and he actually talks about it in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. He says, be sober-minded right out of the gate. Be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Now, when you do, when you smoke weed, when you get drunk, you're not in your right mind. You're not thinking straight. You're not having a clear, conscious decision of everything that's going on.
Right.
So when you're in that state of mind, you're not going to be able to do the right things for God. If something comes up and you have to, whether you have to pray about it, whether you have to talk to somebody about it, you're not going to be able to do the best of your ability or do the due justice that God deserves in that aspect.
Well, right. No, like you're saying, and I didn't know the verse, so thanks for bringing it up. But it's, like you said, it clearly states sober-minded. When you're on any type of drug, really, I mean, you can go even to antidepressants. You're not in your right mind. Even if they help bring it there, sometimes, in some people's cases, it helps bring people, they say, in the right mind, but you're still not in your right mind. I mean, it's pushing it a little bit, I know.
Yeah,
but
that's definitely a tough subject.
But nonetheless, you are literally. God didn't make us to be on drugs, any type of drug, period. If that was the case, He would have had literally a pill popping shop when Adam and Eve were around and just said, "Here, go pop this pill because you need it." So there's something with that in society we've deemed that as needed to, be cleared up. But back to the marijuana point, sober-minded, you're not sober-minded when you're on marijuana.
You're not. And there's also, I had to remind him too, the reason that that's really the only mention of being sober-minded in the Bible is because back then they didn't have things like that. The plant may have existed, but they had no clue what it was. So they did not have the same access, and especially not if you get the harder stuff, heroin, cocaine, speed, any of that. It's a completely different ballgame because that was not around back when the Bible was happening. So God did not have to talk about those subjects now.
Well, right. And back to even that, they may have known, but they also knew it wasn't for them to use.
Yeah.
Like, it might have been for, maybe there is a purpose for an animal to use it. Maybe there's something that we don't know about that. Maybe back then, if they had a cannabis plant and a pig had that, it did something different with the meat. Because, again, they didn't have the same kind of temperatures we do control.
Yeah.
Maybe that turned the meat more tender. Maybe it did something different to it. I don't know. I'm throwing something completely wacky out there with that. But
absolutely,
they might have used it for a different purpose, and it wasn't for getting high. It was for medicinal reasoning for something else, not for them.
Exactly. And to the people saying, oh, well, there's so many medicinal uses for weed. I'm not saying that there aren't any medicinal uses for it. There are. If you have, what's a disease when you can't stop shaking? Parkinson's?
Parkinson's, correct.
I watched a video where they took the chemical compound that's in marijuana. I do not know what it is. I'm not going to try to say it or watch it. But they took the liquid of it and dropped, cannabis oil. They took some kind of liquid form of that, dropped like 2 or 3 drops underneath the guy's tongue. And within 20 minutes, he was fine, completely said he sat up just like a normal person. He was completely fine. So I'm not saying that there's not medical aspects for it. But when you go to a doctor and you say, oh, my knee hurts, oh, my back hurts, I need to smoke weed to make it feel better. No, you don't. You're smoking weed to get high. It's plain and simple.
Yep.
If you're lying to yourself and making up these excuses, that's a different story. We can get into that.
Correct.
But when you go in that aspect, you're smoking it to get high. You're not smoking it to make yourself go out of pain. That's what there's pain pills for if you're really that desperate, or you just walk through the pain. I'm sure you did that.
Lots of times. But, back to your point, there are purposes for it in medicine. I am not cold-hearted. If there's somebody who's in so much pain and that relieves it, okay. They're not doing it to get high. They're doing it to ease a pain.
Yeah.
I can see that. But to smoke something because it makes you feel good is not the right reason for smoking it.
No.
It's the same thing with cigarettes. You can touch base on that too. I mean, if you're doing it because you need the nicotine, that's an addiction, not I enjoy smoking a cigarette every once in a while. My Uncle Mac used to smoke a cigar once a week because he enjoyed a cigar once a week. He wasn't doing it every day, and it wasn't an addiction. It just was something he enjoyed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you said that you have had that argument with smokers about sin in smoking and what kind of sin it would cause. I personally have had it, so I wondered how.
Well, no, it's the temple. It goes back to that because it's proven facts that it affects lungs.
It very badly. It causes cancer.
In all of that reference too, it also affects other people's lungs because secondhand smoke is actually worse than actually smoking. They say. Now you can argue and make a base off of that is it worse, is it not?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it causes other people to have lung cancer who's never smoked a cigarette in their life.
Yeah.
So not only are you harming your temple, you're harming my temple by smoking.
Yep.
So that's the argument I've had based off of that. Is when they say, well, it doesn't really hurt anything. It's not hurting anybody. It's not hurting my body. It's inaccurate because I've seen actual, oh my gosh, X-rays. I couldn't think of the word. X-rays of people's lungs who had smoked for 30 years, and the same time frame for somebody else who's never smoked, and their lungs completely are different.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
the
not
only
just
difference.
that one study. There's
Correct.
numerous accounts. It's not just like they did that once. Oh, we believe it. They've
Exactly.
done that numerous times, and it's all exactly the same.
Exactly.
Even if you do it for 2 months, it is going to harm you. Not nowhere near to the extent.
Correct.
But there's also, I know a lot of people that chew tobacco.
Right.
And it does the same thing.
Yep.
If you look at even their teeth, inside of their gums, they're rotting away. It'll cause mouth cancer. I know people, I don't know anybody personally, but I know one person, and I met his friend, got a hole in his bottom lip, an actual visible hole from chewing tobacco. They put a hole into his mouth. So now whenever he's sitting there, it's nothing huge. It's gotten a little bit smaller, but it's never going to seal up.
Okay.
So there's a hole inside of his bottom lip now that's just there because he chewed tobacco, and I'm sure that he has mouth cancer. I mean, I know some guys have to get their teeth pulled because of this.
Yeah, it's an issue, and I mean, like you've said, there's countless studies on it. So we all know that it's a problem, but yet we still do it. Why?
It's an addiction. I mean, I'm probably the first one to say I'm definitely addicted to caffeine.
Sure.
I drink a lot of Red Bull, a lot of Starbucks coffee, so
Right.
it's not a very good combination. But right now, I have it to the point where it's not harming my body. Now,
Right.
if I start drinking, 5 cups of coffee and 10 Red Bulls a day, there's probably a problem.
Right.
But I'll drink, a coffee a day from Starbucks. I always get a Frappuccino every day. It's not good for me, but it's not harming my body in any way.
Right.
I'll drink a Red Bull or 2. It's not good for me, but it's not actually causing my body harm. It's just putting caffeine into the system. Not the best caffeine, but it's waking me up. It's making me more
Coherent.
vibrant, I guess is a word. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's not actually causing damage to my body to harm it, like smoking or drinking alcohol or doing drugs, smoking weed, whatever.
Right. No, and I agree. Like we have talked about with smoking and drinking, smoking may be a different topic, but I'll pick on drinking. If you have a glass of wine, like I said, it's good for you.
Yeah.
I don't see that being an issue. It's a lot of things in life that we do. Same thing with video games. It's fun to do. Some actually are educational, but in small quantities. When you're playing for an hour compared to 6, there's a big difference there. That can be deemed as not good for you because you're staring at a screen too long, your eyes are getting bloodshot, lots of different effects can be taken there. Not to the extent of harming the temple, probably, but it could be if you wanted to look at it that way. And speaking of which, on that whole topic, what is your takes on false gods? Because I know some people will say that video games could technically be a false god or even a TV screen because you're staring at it for long periods of time, taking your time away from God and putting it into some other activities. So what's your take on that?
I've never had anybody say that playing video games could be considered worshiping a false god.
Okay.
That's a weird one. If I had to make a just immediate opinion, I'd say that you're not worshiping the TV, you're not worshiping the video game. For example, my Red Bull.
Right.
If I was sitting here praising my Red Bull and worshiping it, that would maybe be considered a false god. But as far as playing a video game goes or something like that, I don't think that would be considered a false god just because of the fact that you're not worshiping that. You're simply engaging in it. Now, if you want to make the argument of taking time away from God, I can see where you're coming from. Maybe you should spend more time with God, but I don't think that you can call that worshiping a false god. That's just my standpoint on it. I don't know.
And I put you on the spot. I mean, I understand. That's a tough one to really dig into. I've had arguments and conversations with people like that because I spend a lot of time playing video games. I'll be the first to admit, probably too much. 2 to 3 hours a day. That's kind of what I do when I get home from work. It's my chill time. So they deem it as, well, you should be worshiping God, but instead you're worshiping a video game. Well, I don't think of myself as worshiping a video game. I'm doing it for enjoyment. So, I mean, you can make the same argument of sex as an enjoyment. I mean, some people do that for 2 or 3 hours in a day. So, not every day.
Well, from what I've heard, it's pretty hard to go over 10 minutes, let alone 2 or 3 hours.
Hey, I don't know. Some guys nowadays got some stamina.
I'll give them that.
But regardless, I don't even think that would be worshiping. I'm not worshiping sex.
Well, I would bring up the argument, when you talk about video games, I would say, okay, you work, right?
Right.
So, okay, if you're spending 8 hours a day at work, why is that not worshiping a false god? But playing video games for a little while is.
Well,
that is not equivalent to me. I mean, granted, you have to work.
Right.
That's fair. But do you have to work as long of hours if you really think you need that much more time to dedicate to God with whatever you think you need to be doing?
Right.
Where do you draw the line? Okay, don't sleep as long. You can only sleep 3 hours a night now, because now you got to put that extra 5 hours towards. You got to draw a line,
Well,
obviously.
exactly.
But I just do not get where that argument would come from.
Yeah, like I said, it's people that I've dealt with in my past history of talking about God. They bring up something along those lines, and then you're like, can I really make an argument on it? Because I don't know what God's view of that would be. Because, like I said, we deem worshiping as back when Moses and the Ten Commandments were there, they built a golden cow.
Yeah.
That was a false idol. So we kind of deem it as that. But is something else possibly, that we're doing with our time or spending more time doing or thinking about more than God, deeming it as a false God? I can't answer that.
Well, I don't think that it's what you're spending your time on or what you're thinking about. I think it's more of how you're thinking about that topic. Because when they made the golden cow, they didn't just make it to stare at it or to admire how good it looks, how
Sure.
pretty it is, how shiny it is. They did it to pray to it, to just worship it, right? That's what they're worshiping that.
Right.
When you're playing a video game, you're not praying to the video game for it to do something.
Right.
You're not. I mean, sometimes you might say, "Please let me score this goal," or "Please,"
Right.
you know what I mean. But you're not praying to it. You're not worshiping the video game itself. You're
Sure.
just enjoying the time of playing that.
Yeah, I can see that point. Like I said, I've made points similar to that in the arguments. But when they're, how it is, when somebody's stuck on something, they want to stay there. So, but I don't think it's a worshiping setting. I'm not sitting in front of the TV like you're saying and be like, okay, TV, give me everything. I'm not doing that. So I don't deem it as that. But like I said, we don't know what God's thoughts are either. So if God's thoughts on adultery is if you even look at a girl inappropriately as you're having sex with her, that could be deemed in the same quality. So that's my only thing with it.
Yeah, it's a tough. Everything is all subjective because we don't know 100% what he thinks is right and what he says is right and what he says is wrong. We got to go. We think this is what he means,
right?
But it's completely open to interpretation. So we really do not know at all. We know what we read, we know what we see. There's some stuff that's black and white,
right?
Completely. Okay. There's some stuff there's a lot of stuff. The majority of the stuff is a big, gigantic gray area. And we just got to kind of try to color it in and figure out if it's on that side of the line or this side of the line. Some stuff hovers directly on the line, and it we'll never know.
They'll be talking about it 400 years from now, the same topics, the same things.
Yep.
Like you're saying, the best thing that we can do is to try and find a Christian and Bible perspective on that.
I totally agree. I think that's just all we can do as Christians. But I think we've had a pretty good discussion today. I think we'll just wrap it up there.
Sounds good.
Make sure to check out our podcast next week. We will be talking about the Christian point of view on schools, the school system, and some of our personal opinions on those topics, because there's been a lot of controversy for quite a while now about school. So we're going to go ahead and cover that next week, and we will see you guys then.
Signing off.
Later. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first ever Four Horsemen Podcast. My name is Quinn Schafer. I'm here with Jeremy Wagner.
Hi.